The day duty and bloodline collided. London mornings had a way of pretending everything was normal, even when history was quietly shifting. The sky above Buckingham Palace was pale silver, the kind that made the gold trim on the gates glow softly. Tourists crowded the outer plaza, phones ready, voices layered in a dozen languages. Children sat on shoulders. Street performers played violins near the Victoria Memorial. And standing at post 7 was Royal Guard Sergeant Oliver Hayes. 34 years old. 12 years of service. 0 mistakes on record. To the crowd, he was just another silent guard in red uniform and bearskin hat. To the palace, he was one of the men trusted when things went wrong. And today, something felt wrong. Oliver didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't shift weight. But his eyes tracked everything. Training never stopped. A man arguing with security. A delivery truck arriving 10 minutes early. A government car pulling into the restricted inner drive. That last one made his instincts tighten. Because it wasn't scheduled. The black government sedan rolled past the secondary gate checkpoint after a short radio exchange Oliver couldn't hear. That was unusual. Not impossible. But unusual. And in the palace, unusual meant dangerous until proven otherwise. Inside the vehicle sat Minister Edward Caro. Public image, respected economic strategist. Private reputation, inside palace circles aggressive, unpredictable, politically ambitious. And lately, too interested in royal internal matters. The car stopped. Door opened. Caro stepped out adjusting his navy coat like he owned the building. He walked fast. Too fast. Not like someone arriving for a diplomatic meeting. Like someone trying to reach someone before being stopped. Oliver's earpiece crackled. Post 7, hold observation. Short. Come. Controlled. But Oliver heard the tension. Caro bypassed 2 aides trying to catch him. I have clearance, he snapped. Security staff hesitated. Because technically, he did. But not for today. Then something happened no one expected. From the west corridor doors. Princess and stepped out. No announcement. No escort announcement. Just presence. And when Princess and moved with purpose, people moved out of the way. She wore a deep green coat, gloves, hair perfectly set, posture like carved steel. Not angry. Not loud. Just certain. Caro slowed when he saw her. Your Royal Highness, he said stiffly. She didn't smile. Minister. Her voice carried calm authority that made nearby staff freeze without knowing why. I need to speak with His Majesty immediately, Caro said. No, she replied. One word. Solid as stone. Caro blinked. I believe you misunderstand the urgency. I don't. Silence stretched. Tourists outside the gates laughed and took photos. Inside, tension coiled tight. Oliver's pulse ticked faster. Because Princess Anne was not someone who blocked officials without reason. Caro lowered his voice. This concerns national stability. And stepped forward. And this concerns my brother's safety. The air shifted. Caro's jaw tightened. You're overstepping constitutional boundaries. Anne's eyes didn't move from his. No, she said quietly. I'm enforcing them. Oliver noticed something then. Caro's right hand stayed inside his coat pocket. Too long. Too tight. Oliver's training screamed quietly in his mind. Weapon? Device? Phone? Or nothing. But nothing didn't usually look like tension. Security began repositioning subtly. Not enough to alarm. Enough to react. Caro stepped forward again. I am going inside. And moved. Not fast. Not aggressive. But directly into his path. Close enough that he had to stop or collide with her. Her voice dropped. Full. Direct. You ain't coming near the king. The words were simple. But the message was iron. Caro froze. Because this was no longer politics. This was family. And protection. Oliver saw Caro's hand twitch inside the coat. Time slowed. Not dramatic slow. Training slow. Calculation slow. Distance. Angle. Reaction timing. Backup positions. His earpiece whispered. Possible threat posture. Stand ready. Caro exhaled sharply. Then, slowly pulled his hand out. Just a phone. But the tension didn't leave Oliver. Because Caro looked desperate. Not angry. Desperate. I have information, Caro said. Information that could destroy the monarchy if mishandled. And didn't react emotionally. But Oliver saw it. The micro-freeze. The calculation. Then you will hand it to security, she said. No, Caro replied. I will speak directly to the king. And stepped even closer. And if you don't trust palace security, why should we trust you? Caro swallowed. Art. And for the first time, Oliver realized. This wasn't power play. This was fear. Inside the palace, alarms weren't sounding. But decisions were being made. Fast. And turned slightly. Just enough to signal Oliver without looking at him. Old training from decades of royal protocol. Protect. Contain. Control narrative. Oliver stepped forward 2 paces. Not aggressive, but unmistakable. Caro noticed, and something inside him cracked. People are planning something, he said quietly. Something big. Anne's voice softened. Then help us stop it. Silence. Long. Heavy. Then Caro whispered, I think someone inside government wants to force abdication. Oliver felt the world tilt. Not shock, but gravity. And didn't react visibly. But Oliver saw the steel lock into place behind her eyes. Then, she said quietly, you just saved more than a throne. And that was the moment Oliver realized. This wasn't about access. This was about survival. Of something bigger than any one person. Far across the courtyard, a press drone lifted into the air. News was already circling. They just didn't know why yet. And Oliver understood something else. Today wasn't over. It was just beginning. The hidden file that could collapse the crown. The palace didn't panic. It never did. Panic was for crowds. For politicians. For news anchors chasing breaking headlines. Buckingham Palace ran on something colder. Precision. Within 3 minutes of Minister Caro's quiet confession, 3 silent protocols activated. Inner security doors sealed. Communication lines rerouted. Private royal advisory teams summoned. No alarms. No public signals. Just invisible control tightening like a net. Royal Guard Sergeant Oliver Hayes remained at his post, but his world had shifted. He wasn't just guarding walls anymore. He was guarding secrets that could shake nations. Princess Anne turned toward him slightly. Sergeant Hayes. Yes, ma'am. Walk with us. That alone meant one thing. Situation critical. Oliver fell into step 2 paces behind Anne and 1 beside Minister Caro as they moved through a restricted corridor few staff ever entered. The hallway lights were softer here. Security cameras more discreet. History thicker in the air. Caro breathing sounded louder now. Like the weight of what he carried was finally pressing down. They reached a secured briefing room. Doors sealed behind them with a soft hydraulic hiss. Inside waited 3 people. A Royal Security Director Malcolm Reeves. Intelligence Liaison Director Sarah Whitmore. Private Secretary to the King, Jonathan Elric. No one spoke at first. Because silence in rooms like this wasn't awkward. It was strategic. And removed her gloves slowly. Minister Caro believes there is an internal government faction attempting to destabilize the crown. Reeves' expression didn't change. Whitmore's eyes sharpened. Elric folded his hands tighter. Explain, Whitmore said. Caro reached into his coat again, slower this time. Oliver's muscles still tightened automatically. But Caro removed only a thin encrypted drive. I wasn't supposed to find this, Caro said. I was reviewing budget reallocations tied to defense intelligence, and I found hidden authorizations. Whitmore stepped forward. Hidden how? Caro swallowed. Layered under emergency infrastructure funding. That made Reeves move slightly. Because emergency infrastructure funding bypassed several oversight layers. Caro placed the drive on the table. I copied everything. Quietly. And looked at him carefully. Why come here first? Caro's voice cracked slightly. Because if this is real, Parliament won't stop it fast enough. Silence again. He wasn't wrong. Whitmore connected the drive to a secure terminal. Encryption began unlocking through palace cyber defense layers. Numbers. Files. Names. Then a list appeared. Government officials. Defense contractors. Media executives. 3 foreign diplomatic advisors. And 1 name that made the room freeze. A senior royal financial consultant. Elric whispered, "No," and didn't move. But Oliver saw her jaw tighten slightly. That was her version of shock. Whitmore scrolled further. Hidden meeting dates. Private travel logs. Encrypted communication timestamps. Reeves spoke quietly. They're building a narrative. Caro nodded. Economic crisis. Public trust collapse. Emergency leadership restructuring. Whitmore finished the sentence. Which could legally pressure abdication. No one spoke for 10 full seconds. Then Anne said quietly, "How far along?" Caro exhaled. Phase 3. Reeves turned sharply. They're already influencing media. Whitmore nodded slowly. and positioning economic triggers, and looked toward the sealed door. Like she could see through it, through walls, through London, through the entire system. Then she spoke with absolute calm. "We contain this quietly." Reeves nodded. "Yes, Your Royal Highness." And turned to Oliver. "Sergeant." "Yes, ma'am." "From this moment forward, His Majesty's personal security detail is doubled." "Yes, ma'am." "Rotation randomized. No predictable patterns." "Yes, ma'am." Kara watched Oliver with something like relief, like seeing real protection finally activating. Whitmore looked back at the screen. "There's more." Another file opened. Surveillance requests. On royal movements. Private schedules. Charity visits. Medical appointment windows. Oliver felt cold anger rise in his chest. Someone had been mapping vulnerability. Anne's voice lowered. "Then someone believes they're close." Caro nodded slowly. "I think they were waiting for the right crisis." Reeves looked at Whitmore. "Can we trace communication sources?" Whitmore typed rapidly. "Some, but they were careful. Very careful." Then another name appeared. A senior policy advisor. Currently scheduled to attend a closed Royal Economic Summit. Tomorrow. And turned. "Cancel it." Elric hesitated. "That will raise suspicion." And replied instantly. "Good." They all looked at her. "Let them know we're not blind," she said. Whitmore nodded slowly. "Understood." Then and did something unexpected. She looked at Caro. Not as an official. Not as a political rival. As a human being. "You did the right thing coming here," she said. Caro's shoulders finally dropped slightly. Like he'd been holding his breath for days. Then Reeves' phone buzzed. He checked. Face hardened. "What is it?" And asked. "Unverified media leak, rumors about royal financial instability." Whitmore closed her eyes briefly. "They've started." And stood taller. "Then we finish this before they can finish us." Oliver felt something shift inside him. Not fear. Purpose. Because he realized, this wasn't just about protecting a person. This was about protecting stability for millions of people who would never know this moment happened. And walked toward the door. Then paused. "Sergeant Hayes." "Yes, ma'am." "Stay close today." "Yes, ma'am." And Oliver knew. The storm wasn't coming. It was already here. Outside, London moved normally. Taxis honked. Tourists laughed. Markets opened. But inside Buckingham Palace, a silent war had just begun. The night trust broke inside the palace. Night changed Buckingham Palace. Daytime made it look like history. Nighttime revealed how much of it was still alive. The lights across the inner courtyards dimmed to security levels. Tour buses disappeared. Footsteps echoed louder in long marble corridors. And somewhere inside the palace, someone was helping the enemy. Royal Guard Sergeant Oliver Hayes stood outside the king's private study doors. 2 additional guards now stood with him. New protocol. No one entered without triple verification. No exceptions. Inside, King Charles met with Princess and senior advisors. Oliver couldn't hear their conversation. But he didn't need to. The air itself felt heavier. His earpiece crackled. "Sergeant Hayes, proceed to security control." That was unusual. Very unusual. He acknowledged quietly and moved fast but controlled, never running, never showing urgency. Because even fear had protocol here. Security control room sat 2 levels below ground. No windows. No outside signal interference. Only screens. Hundreds of them. Director Malcolm Reeves stood waiting. Beside him, Intelligence Director Sarah Whitmore. Both looked like they hadn't blinked in hours. "Sergeant," Reeves said, "we need your eyes." Oliver stepped closer. Whitmore brought up footage. Internal corridor cameras. West Residential Wing. Time stamp. 23 minutes ago. Footage showed a palace financial consultant walking through a restricted hall. Badge clearance valid. Movement normal. But then, he stopped. Looked around. Then placed something small under a decorative table. Oliver leaned forward slightly. Device. Whitmore nodded. Most likely data transmitter. Possibly signal relay. Reeves spoke quietly. "That table is directly above secure fiber communication routing." Which meant, someone inside had tried to tap royal communications. Oliver felt cold settle into his chest. Betrayal always felt colder than danger. Whitmore switched feeds. Next camera. Consultant exiting calmly. Like nothing happened. "Where is he now?" Oliver asked. Reeves answered. "Still inside the palace." Silence filled the room. Then Anne's voice came through speaker line. Come. Controlled. Lock the palace internally. Quiet protocol. Which meant no exits. No entries. No public awareness. Whitmore muted audio channel. Then looked at Oliver. You know him. She pulled up personnel file. Name, Daniel Harcourt. Role, Senior Royal Financial Risk Advisor. Service, 9 years. Background, flawless. Oliver nodded slowly. He briefed us on funding security upgrades last winter. Reeves sighed. They always choose people no one questions. Whitmore zoomed camera. Harcourt now walking through guest wing hallway. Heading toward service elevator. Not random, Oliver said quietly. He's heading toward lower exit routes. Reeves nodded. Exactly. Anne's voice returned. Sergeant Hayes. Yes, Your Royal Highness. Take 2 guards. Quiet intercept. No public exposure. Yes, ma'am. Oliver moved immediately. 2 guards joined him. No words needed. They all understood. Service elevator corridor felt colder than rest of palace. Less decorated. More functional. Less royal. More real. Oliver slowed as they approached corner. Hand signal. Stop. Listen. Footsteps. 1 person. Fast walking. Oliver stepped around corner. Daniel Harcourt froze mid-step. Eyes wide. Then, calm. Too fast. Sergeant, Harcourt said lightly. Late shift. Oliver stepped forward slowly. Sir, please come with us. Harcourt smiled slightly. I'm actually heading home. Oliver didn't respond. Just held eye contact. Harcourt's smile faded. Is this about something? He asked. Yes, Oliver said quietly. Silence stretched. Then Harcourt exhaled slowly. Am I under arrest? Oliver answered carefully. No. But you are under internal security investigation. Harcourt nodded once. Like he expected this. May I ask why? Oliver didn't answer. Instead, please place your access badge and phone on the floor. Harcourt hesitated. 1 second. 2 seconds. Then complied. But Oliver saw something then. Relief. Not fear. Relief. Which was worse. They escorted him quietly through service corridors. No alarms. No noise. No scenes. Inside secure holding interview room. Harcourt sat calmly. Hands folded. Whitmore entered. Followed by Anne. Harcourt looked at her. And something like shame crossed his face. I didn't want it to happen like this, he said quietly. And spoke gently. Then tell us why it happened at all. Silence. Long. Heavy. Then Harcourt whispered. They said if I didn't help, they would destroy my family financially. Whitmore leaned forward. Who? Harcourt shook his head. They never met me directly. Always through intermediaries. And asked softly. What were they planning next? Harcourt closed his eyes. Public collapse event, he said. Market manipulation. Then media narrative. Then emergency constitutional pressure. Exactly what Caro warned. Whitmore asked quietly. Timeline? Harcourt swallowed. Soon. The room went silent again. And stood straight. Then spoke with quiet steel. Then we end it before Soon arrives. Outside the room. Oliver stood guard. But inside him. Something had changed. Because tonight. He learned something no training manual ever taught. Sometimes the greatest threats. Don't wear enemy uniforms. They wear trusted faces. And somewhere in London. The people pulling strings still thought they were winning. They had no idea. The palace was already moving against them. And this time, the crown was ready. When the conspiracy reached the public, and the palace struck back. By sunrise, London still looked normal. But normal was now an illusion. Royal Guard Sergeant Oliver Hayes hadn't slept. None of them had. Inside Buckingham Palace, lights burned through the night across offices normally dark after midnight. Lawyers, cyber intelligence teams, royal advisors, national security liaisons. All moving quietly. All moving fast. And Princess Anne hadn't left the strategy room once. At 6:10 a.m. Director Whitmore entered carrying a tablet. Her face said everything before she spoke. They leaked it, she said. And didn't react outwardly. Which version? She asked calmly. Whitmore placed the tablet on the table. Headlines filled the screen. Royal financial instability rumors spark market concern. Is the monarchy facing secret internal crisis? Government sources suggest emergency talks underway. Not accusations. Not yet. But seeds planted. Reeves spoke quietly. They're testing public reaction. Caro, still under palace protection, nodded grimly. This is phase 3. Oliver stood near the door, absorbing everything. He realized something important. This wasn't just a political attack. This was psychological warfare. If public trust dropped enough, pressure would build. Markets would shake. Parliament would panic. And suddenly, emergency leadership discussions would sound reasonable. And stood slowly. Then did something unexpected. Prepare a statement, she said. Whitmore blinked. Public? And nodded. Yes. Reeves frowned slightly. That exposes us early. And turned toward him. They already exposed us. Silence. Because she was right. Elric spoke carefully. What kind of statement? Anne's voice stayed calm. Not defensive. She paused. Confident. Meanwhile, across London, media speculation exploded. Financial talk shows debated royal spending. Political commentators hinted at structural transition. Social media filled with rumors. And none of them knew. They were reacting exactly how the conspiracy planners wanted. At 9:30 a.m., inside the palace press hall, royal press staff gathered. Confused, concerned. Because last-minute press briefings almost never happened. Oliver stood with expanded guard detail along the hall edges. Eyes scanning constantly. Every movement mattered now. At 9:42, Princess Anne entered. No script in hand. No notes. Cameras flashed. Journalists leaned forward. And stepped to podium. And spoke. The Crown is aware of circulating rumors regarding financial and institutional instability. The room froze. Because she didn't deny it. She continued. The British monarchy has faced challenges for over 1,000 years. We do not respond to rumors with panic. We respond with transparency and responsibility. Phones across the world lit up. And continued calmly. There is no emergency transition. There is no hidden crisis. There is only the continued duty of service. Oliver watched reporters glance at each other. Because she had just killed the narrative tone. But then, she did something even bigger. Additionally, she said, we are cooperating fully with security authorities regarding an ongoing investigation into coordinated misinformation efforts. Gasp. Actual audible gasps. That line changed everything. Because now, if anyone pushed the narrative, they risked looking like part of a criminal investigation. Back inside security operations, Whitmore watched global media shift in real time. They just lost momentum, she said quietly. Reeves nodded. They didn't expect public confidence. Carol whispered. She just forced them into defensive position. Meanwhile, Oliver received a quiet message through earpiece. New intel. Possible meeting tonight. Unknown conspirators. His stomach tightened. Because this wasn't over. Not even close. Later that evening, inside Palace Strategy Room, Whitmore displayed intercepted encrypted scheduling traffic. Possible covert meeting location. Private club in Westminster. And studied the screen. Who's attending? She asked. Whitmore answered carefully. Unknown, but likely high-level coordinators. Reeves looked at Oliver. Then at Anne. Observation operation? He asked. And nodded once. Yes. Then she looked at Oliver. Sergeant Hayes. Yes, ma'am. Tonight, you won't just be guarding the crown. She held his gaze. You'll be helping protect its future. Oliver nodded. Yes, Your Royal Highness. And for the first time, he fully understood the weight of his uniform. Outside, London lights glowed across the river. Cars moved. People laughed. Life continued. But under that calm, the biggest political chess match in decades was about to enter its final moves. And this time, the palace wasn't reacting. It was hunting.